All right, let's go ahead and translate some sentences. First one up. So these sentences are going to have either a relative pronoun or an interrogative adjective, which is also a pronoun. But to kind of tell between them, we're just going to refer to it as an interrogative adjective. Okay, so our first sentence, qui weary, wenient. We have qui here, and it's either going to be a relative pronoun, so it's going to be who, and referring back to something, or it's going to be an interrogative adjective that's going to be asking a question. The question mark here at the end is leading me to think that we are dealing with an interrogative here and not a relative. Also, the lack of, clause. There's relative pronouns are generally in their own clause that you can lift out of the sentence and still have the sentence make sense. I don't really see that we can do that here. So this, I'm going to say, is an interrogative adjective. Interrogative adjective. Ugh, where are my words? So now that we've kind of set what we think that is, let's go ahead and do our parts of speech. We don't need to label that, we've already have. So weary here, this is a noun. From weary, it's a second declension masculine noun. It means men. This is either going to be a nominative plural form or a genitive singular form. So wenient here, this is a verb. It's from wenio wenire. That's a fourth conjugation verb, and it is the third person. We know that from the NT here. Third person plural, and this is the future form. So third person plural, they, and future will. Wenio weniere is like they will come, they will arrive. So they will arrive. So we have what the verb means. Now we need to find the they, the subject in the verb. So we know that we're looking for a plural. So this noun right here, weary, we said it could either be the nominative plural form, which would make it the subject, or it could be the genitive singular. There's nothing else here. There are no other nouns to for the genitive to kind of be or for a genitive form to be working off of. So we're going to take it as the nominative plural. So the men. Men, the men. So qui here is referring to who are the men. It's a plural form. It's the plural and singular form of the masculine look the same in the relative. In the interrogative, the singular form is quis and the plural form is qui. So the qui here, relative and interrogatives do not have to match their subject in case. In this case, it just happens to, but it does match it also in gender and in number. So who, which, what, any of these work for qui here, and any of them work for a sentence. So it would be who, which, what. We'll just use which for right now. Which men will arrive. And that's that sentence. All right, let's move on to the next one. Messy sheet here. Oh well. All right, next sentence. Sunt weary, quos cognoscis. So this right here, do we have an interrogative adjective or do we have a relative pronoun? Well, So there's no question mark here. So that immediately indicates to me that we are not working with an interrogative, but rather a relative. Also, the fact that this right here, the quos and the verb, is a relative clause, and it can be taken out and the sentence still makes sense. So they are men. Okay, so we're going to go with RP for relative pronoun. Now let's label the rest of the parts of speech in the sentence. We have a verb here, we have a noun here, we have another verb over here. So what we're going to do is split this up into two different clauses. Our main clause, sunt veri, and our relative clause, which is a dependent clause, quos cognoscis. Okay, so we'll start with the sunt veri, the main clause. Sunt here, this is a verb. It is a third person. That's what the NT is telling me there. And it is plural. They are. Present, active, indicative. Okay, so now we need to have a subject for our verb here. And luckily we have weary right next to it. Now, like in the sentence before, we said that weary could either be the nominative plural form or the singular genitive form. And once again, nominative plural is going to take it. So they are men, they are the men. Okay, so there's your main clause. All right, next up, quos cognosci. So cognoscis here, this is a verb, and this is at the end tells me it is a second person singular. This comes from cognosco, cognoscere, and that is a third conjugation verb. It means become acquainted with, to be aware of, to recognize. We'll take it as recognize. All right, and this is a present active indicative. So you recognize. Make that a little bit clearer. Cognize. All right, so you recognize. Now the subject is contained within the verb this time. You is within the verb, so we don't need to go looking for a subject outside of it. Let's look at quos here, our relative pronoun. This is the accusative form, so whom. And it's also going to be the object of cognoscis here. You recognize whom you recognize. But remember, a relative pronoun needs to have something called an antecedent. It needs to have something to refer to. It only has meaning relative to its antecedent. So we're going to look for a noun preceding quos here, and that noun is going to be weary. So what do we know about relative pronouns? That they need to match their antecedent in number and in gender, but not necessarily in case. Both of these are masculine, both of these are plural. So quos here is matching weary in gender and in number. So whom you recognize, or you recognize whom, and whom is referring to the men. So the sentence would be something like, they are the men comma whom you recognize. Whom you recognize. Okay, all right, let's move on to another. Make sure it's open. So de quibus viris, cur, a bas. De quibus viri curribas. So looking at the sentence structure itself, seeing the question mark indicates to me that this right here is going to be an interrogative adjective. Okay. Now, quibus can be the form of either the dative or the ablative. Which is this? Is this interrogative right here, is it dative or is it ablative? So there are some things that will indicate the difference between the two. One is this handy little preposition here, de. This is an ablative preposition. So we have an ablative interrogative adjective there. Yay, excellent. All right, let's go through and mark our parts of speech real quick. So this is a preposition. That's an adjective slash pronoun. This is a noun, and this is a verb. Okay. So this verb comes from curo, curere, which means to run. So if you think of something like a curriculum, it's like a little running. And we have a couple different things here. So it's a verb, curo, curere, meaning to run. So this S is telling me it's second person singular. Second singular. So you. And then also this BA is telling me, it's a tense indicator. It's telling me that we are in imperfect. So you were running, or you used to run. Okay, so you were running or you used to run. And this is supposed to be wearies here, not weary. My mistake. All right, so you were running, you used to run. Now we've got this interrogative adjective right here, de quibus. So de is a preposition that means like about, with regard to, from sometimes. We'll get to that one in a minute, just giving you a little bit of something for the preposition. Wearies. So this is a second declension masculine noun. So wearies is either going to be a dative or an ablative. All right, I'm going to say that it's probably going to be an ablative because it's going to match the interrogative here. It's going to be talking about with regard to which men you used to run or things like that, okay? So how would we tell the difference between it being a dative or an ablative? So you would need to use something like dative if our verb here was one that needed to have an indirect object. Or like a verb of giving, showing, or telling. Curribas here, this just means to run. So wearies here is going to most likely be an ablative because there's no reason for curribas to take an indirect object or to require an indirect object. Okay, so what do we have? So de, like I said, is like with regard to, about, concerning, of. So we'll just use we'll choose concerning because that works. So concerning, and then quibus here is going to be what, which. We'll use which. So concerning which, and probably referring over here to men. Concerning which men, concerning which people, or yeah, concerning which men. Concerning which men And so, because we assume that it's kind of picking up here. And when we have something in the ablative, you know, by or with is generally how you're using it. Shoot. Sorry about that. My camera just decided to, you know, let me know that its battery was dead by absolutely just stopping. This should be concerning instead of concern. So, concerning, about, concerning, we'll just say the men. Concerning men, you were running or you used to run with. Concerning men you used to run with. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Weary. Quibuscum. DK boss. Okay, so here, have we got an interrogative or have we got a relative pronoun? Okay, so we don't have a question mark. It's not the very beginning. I'm going to go ahead and say that we have a relative pronoun here. What we have is quibus plus a form of cum. Okay, so this is an ablative here because cum is an ablative preposition. And sometimes those over time get combined together. So it's going to be something like with whom, plural. Okay, so we'll put that in there. So with plural whom's. Right, the other parts of speech here, we've had weary a bunch of times, so we know that that's a noun. And then DK boss here, that's a verb. The S at the end, that tells us that we have a second person singular, so you. And that BA tells us that we are in imperfect. So this is from dicere. It is a it's a third declension, third conjugation. I'm gonna do that forever, I'm pretty sure. Third conjugation verb, dicere, to say, to talk, to tell, to call. And this is, like I said, imperfect. And indicative, active. Okay, so it's you were talking. Or you used to talk. All right, so weary here. That's going to be men. It can either be nominative plural men, or it can be genitive, genitive singular. It's going to be nominative plural here because we need to have an antecedent for quibuscum. That's just easier to read it than to say it sometimes. Quibuscum. And quibuscum is a plural. And what do we know about relative pronouns and their antecedents? They need to match in number and in gender, not necessarily in case. So if this is plural, its antecedent needs to be plural. So this is a plural nominative, not a singular genitive. So the men. So this whole sentence is the men, oops, with whom you were speaking, or you were talking, or you used to talk. Men with whom you were talking, or you used to talk. All right, let's move on. Next is Puella, Quies, Virtutum, Laudabas. Parts of speech here. We also have to decide, do we have an interrogative or a relative? Well, we don't have a question mark. This doesn't appear to be at the very beginning. I believe we've got a relative pronoun. Pronoun. We've got a noun here. Virtutum is another noun, and then a verb. Okay, so let's look at our verb. So this verb right here, laudabas, what do we notice about it? First of all, it is an S at the end, so that means it's going to be a second person singular. So it's a you. And then this BA right here tells me it's imperfect. So you were, or you used to. And laudabas, that's coming from lauda, laudare, which is to praise. So you were praising, imperfect, or you used to praise. Okay, and now this needs, it has a subject located within the verb itself, so you, but it needs an object now. What else in this object, or what else in the sentence could be an object? Virtutum. This is an accusative form here. We can tell by EM at the end here, which also means that we're dealing with a third declension noun. So virtutum is like virtue. Virtue here. Virtue. All right. So because this has a relative in it, we can go ahead and separate it out into two different clauses. Your main clause, which is laudabas virtutum, and puella quies here. All right. Here's our relative clause, and here is our main clause. So quies, this is a genitive singular of whom. Okay, so put genitive singular. Our antecedent here is puella. Now, what case is puella? Because this could be a nominative singular or it could be an ablative singular. It's kind of our only two options here. What happens a lot of the times in in sentences is that you will have a form of sum esse that is just implied, that is not obviously stated. And that could be happening here because there's nothing really to indicate that we would need to have Luella be an ablative or have it be anything other than a nominative here. So if we imagine that there's an est somewhere kind of tucked either after the qui is here or somewhere after the puella even. So let's see, this is a nominative. The girl is, okay, so you were praising, you used to praise virtue of which the girl has, or which the girl is praised for, something like that. So what we can do here is do what's called a direct translation, which is where you just put the words down one for one. Put up whom. And then you take those words and make them make more sense in English by moving them around a little bit so that they, so you can translate it and understand it in English. So this would be, so girl of whom, virtue you were praising. And then remember that we have somewhere in here an implied form of sum esse for the girl. The girl is of whom virtue you were praising. So let's see, we would write it as, where's my green? Of whom or of which. So the girl is so you were praising, here we'll go like this. Make it make a little bit more sense. You were praising virtue. You were praising virtue of which the girl is. I know it doesn't make a ton of sense grammatically, or like this in English as well. But basically, the sentence is saying like you're praising virtue, and also the girl is of virtue. So indirectly, you were praising the girl. Okay, let's move on to another. Weary, forum, Helios, Saipe, Lao, Damos. Okay. All right. So again, we don't have a question. So this is going to be functioning as a relative pronoun. And we can go ahead and separate these out into two different clauses, our main clause and then our relative clause. So mark our parts of speech. Noun, pronoun, noun. This is an adverb. And then this is a verb. So this tells me right here we have a first person plural. So this is lauda, laudare, like the previous sentence had. So we praise, this is present active. We praise. Saipe, this is an adverb meaning often. Philios, this os at the end is telling me that we are an accusative. So this is sons. So we often praise sons. Okay, so that's the first part of our main clause. We often praise sons. So quorum here, this is a plural and it is a genitive. Of whom. Okay, so of whom plural. And then our quorum here needs to have an antecedent. Our antecedent is weary. Weary here could be either nominative plural or it can be genitive singular. Our relative pronoun here is a masculine plural. So this means it needs to be a masculine plural as well. So it's going to be the nominative form. So men, the men. And in these clauses, when we don't have any other verb, generally we have a form of implied sum esse. So of whom, there's an implied sunt in here, of whom are men. Okay, so what does the whole sentence look like? From a red. Often we praise sons. Who are men. Okay. So weary can also take on a meaning of like honor or courage or nobility as well. We get the word like virile from we're weary. Also, strength comes from this word, but that's a different kind of a different word. It's vis virus, which is a third conjugation. But yeah, so you could also be saying instead of who are men, it could also be who are strong, who are courage, things like that. All right, let's move on. Okay. Quibus. Temporibus. Vivimus. Oops, missing an I there. Tuck it in. So we've got a question mark at the end. We've got an interrogative adjective to start. What else do we have in our sentence? We have a noun with temporibus and a verb with vivimus. Vivimus comes from vivo, vivere, which is a third conjugation verb, meaning to be alive, to live, to survive, to reside. Okay, so our subject is within the verb here. Mus, we live. Okay, Now, quibus, that can be either a dative or an ablative. Let's look at what temporibus is to see if it gives us any more context. Temporibus could also be a dative or ablative. It comes from tempus temporis, which is neuter, which means time. So out of context here, we're going to take these as ablatives, and we're going to use these to say within something, in which, in what times, okay? In what times we live. So in what times, to make this more of a free translation, make more sense in English. In what times do we live? What times do we live? Very fitting for 2020, I'll tell you what. All right, let's move on. Literas. Quas. Mitebas. So right here, we're in the middle of a phrase. Does not appear that this is a question, so we have a relative pronoun. So we're going to go do this. Literas is a noun meaning letters. And this is accusative plural, comes from litera, literae in the first declension feminine. Like I said, meaning letters. In the singular, it just kind of means letters as in like individual letters written out. In the plural, this means like letters, like a collection of letters, books, records, accounts, correspondence even, okay? Quas here is plural and it is feminine. It is going to use literas as its antecedent here. And then mitibas right here, this is, oops, where's my yellow? This is a verb from mito, mitere. It's a third conjugation meaning to send. This as here is telling me that I am in second person singular, and the ba is telling me that it is imperfect. So you were sending. So this whole thing would be the letters which you were sending. Letters which you were sending. This is a snippet of a sentence just to practice matching the relative pronoun to the antecedent and telling the relative pronoun from the interrogative pronoun. All right, let's go on. Got a couple more left. Qui, vero, literas, Scribebas. Okay, so we've got a question mark, meaning this is going to be an interrogative. Got our interrogative adjective / pronoun. We've got a noun here with viro, literas, another noun, and a verb with scribebas. Scribebas. This is the subject here, you, for a second person singular, you. We're an imperfect. Comes from scribo, scribere, which is to write. So you were writing. Or you used to write. Okay, you were writing, you used to write what? We need an object. Literas. The object, the accusative plural form of litera, literae, which is letters. So you were writing, you used to write letters. Now we have viro here, which is the ablative or dative form of we're weary from the second declension masculine. If I'm writing letters, I need an indirect object here. I need someone to write my letters to the man. And then qui here, this is my dative form of my interrogative. So to whom? So to whom, probably referring to the man. To whom, to which man. To which man, the letters you used to write. Or if we made it more friendly to English, to which man did you use to write letters? To which man did you use to write letters? Okay, let's do one last one. Amor versus quem laudamos. Quem here, I'm going to say is a relative pronoun because we don't have a question mark at the end here. We have a noun. We have versus, another noun. Where's that one? We're using that one as an adjective. I'll check. We have a relative pronoun, and then we also have a verb. We're using it as a preposition this time. Verb, preposition. Okay, so this is our accusative form here. And this is an accusative preposition. So versus used as a preposition is toward. So toward which. Okay. Oh, wait, no, wait. Aha, found something different. It's not being used as an adverb. This is kind of the problem with both English and Latin is that you can have words that look the same that operate similarly. Versus is a noun here, literally meaning burst. So it is, it's like a line of verse, like in a poem or something like that. And we have love here, so that makes sense that we're using it. So versus is kind of complicated because it's got the same form in the nominative and in the genitive, but I believe that we will be able to do this. Amor. Oh, whereas. Dagnabbit. I saw versus when it wasn't versus, it was whereas, as in true. Ugh. That's what I get for reading too quickly. My goodness. So whereas as in true. Ugh. Not ugh as in true, but just that I mistook it. Embarrassing. All right. Move that out of the way. So, quem here. This is the accusative form, meaning we're going to use this as an object. Okay, let's. Separate. Damus, again, this is we praise. We had this previously. So we praise. We praise which or whom. So now what is that thing that we're praising? Whoops, we'll put that in the proper color. We praise whom, which. Let's figure out what which is. Whereas that's an adjective here, noun. Adjective. So it's not standing substantively. It's not standing on its own. It is modifying amor here. But we can take those together. These are both nominative masculine forms, so true love. So the whole thing, true love, or love true, which we praise. We praise that which is true love. We praise true love. Lovely. All right. That's all for those sentences to tell relative pronouns from interrogative pronouns.